For listen, lock your door.
First story.
I live in a small town in northern Maine, where neighbors are few and the trees are many. My house sits at the edge of a thick patch of forest. It's quiet here, peaceful even. No traffic, no city noise, just the rustle of wind through pine trees and the occasional deer walking across the yard. I'd grown used to the silence over the years. It felt safe, predictable. Last December, my parents left town to visit my sister in Colorado. I couldn't join due to a brutal flu I was just recovering from, so they left me the house and stocked the fridge for a week. I wasn't worried. At 25, I'd lived alone before. I actually looked forward to the solitude, just me, some books, Netflix, and bowls of soup. But that was before someone or something started standing outside my house. The first night alone passed quietly. I went to bed early, still weak from the flu. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up coughing and went to get water from the kitchen. As I passed the front window, I noticed something odd: footprints in the fresh snow on the front porch. Long, deep tracks, like boots, leading to the window, but none going away. My stomach dropped. I hadn't been outside since morning, and it had snowed at least 3 inches since then. These tracks were new. I flicked on the porch light and peered outside. Nothing but wind and white snow swirling in the beam. No person, no animals, no prints leaving the porch. I checked the locks on the front and back door, both secure, then stood for a long time in the hallway, listening. Nothing, no sound, just my own breath and the ticking of the kitchen clock. I went back to bed telling myself it was probably a delivery guy or a neighbor checking in. But deep down, I didn't believe it. The next night, I couldn't sleep. Around 1 a.m., I muted the TV and walked past the living room window, then froze. There was a figure just beyond the tree line, not moving, not walking, just standing, watching. They were far enough that I couldn't see a face, but close enough to make out a human shape, tall, still, shadowed in the moonlight. I turned off the light inside the room. I pressed closer to the window, but when I looked again, nothing. The figure was gone. I stayed up until sunrise that night, checking the windows every half hour. Nothing else appeared. The next morning, I found new prints in the snow. These came from the woods and circled the entire house. I didn't call the police. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid they'd dismiss it. Maybe I didn't want to say out loud what I feared, that someone was watching me, waiting. Or worse, not someone, something. On the third night, the knocking started, not at the door but on the walls. It was around 11:50 p.m. when I heard it. One knock. Then another, coming from the back of the house, near the laundry room. I turned off the TV and listened. Knock, knock, dot, 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 knock. 3 slow hits, too slow to be a branch in the wind, too steady. I grabbed a flashlight and walked into the hallway. All the windows were locked. No one at the back door. But the sound came again, knock, knock, this time from the side of the house. Outside the kitchen, I moved to the other side, pressed my ear to the cold glass. Silence. Then breathing. I swear I heard it, low, ragged breathing on the other side of the glass. But when I flicked the porch light on and yanked the curtain aside, nothing was there. Just blackness and snow. I didn't sleep at all that night. By the 4th night, I was exhausted. I kept the lights on in every room. I moved the couch to face the front door and sat there with a blanket and a baseball bat in my lap. Around 3:12 a.m., the porch light flickered. Then the doorknob turned. It jiggled, softly, deliberately, as if testing the lock. I stood up, my legs trembling. The door was locked. I had double-checked. But whoever or whatever was out there, clearly they were trying to get in. Then it stopped. 5 minutes passed. I leaned close to the peephole and squeering that, and saw an eye staring back at me. Wide, unblinking, pale blue rimmed in red. Not quite human. Too round, too glassy. I jumped back and nearly fell over the coffee table. When I dared to look, again it was gone. I called the police this time. They came 25 minutes later, found more footprints, no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no witnesses. They told me it was probably a prank, maybe a drifter or neighbor, kid, but their faces didn't match their words. One officer kept glancing toward the woods. The other wouldn't meet my eyes. The fifth and final night was the worst. I barricaded every door, every window, moved my mattress into the hallway and tried to sleep with the lights on. Around 2:46 a.m., every light in the house went out. Power failure. I sat up, heart pounding, complete silence. Then the sound of something moving through the snow outside, slow, dragging steps. Crunch, 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 then a whisper. Right outside the front window. It wasn't words. More like a sound crawling through the glass. Hey hoo, like the exhale of something not alive. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then something tapped the window. Not knock-tapped like a fingernail. I covered my ears, curled into a ball. Something was circling the house again. I could hear it scraping the siding, tapping every few feet. And then it started whispering my name. Wrong. Off-key, like it. Cat. Had heard someone else say it, and was mimicking it through broken lungs. Ya aak ... Broke me. I screamed. I don't remember grabbing the knife from the kitchen or running outside barefoot into the snow. I only remember the silence afterward and how the woods seemed darker than ever. By the time my parents came home the next morning, I was shivering in the bathtub, still holding the knife. They didn't believe me. The cops found no new tracks. The security cameras I had installed the day before all glitched out between 2:40 and 3:20 a.m. I moved out 2 weeks later. The house is still there. Empty, but sometimes. My new neighbors 3 streets away say they hear knocking on their windows at night, and a voice in the trees, whispering a name. Only it's not Jake anymore. It's yours. Warning. If you ever see footprints in the snow leading to your house, but none going back, don't open the door.
Second story.
It was supposed to be a chill night. My parents were out for a weekend getaway, and I had the house to myself. Just me, a pizza, and a thunderstorm rolling in perfect weather to binge horror movies and pretend I wasn't a little on edge. Our house sits at the far end of a quiet cul-de-sac, bordered by a dense patch of woods. Peaceful, but isolated. I was halfway through the ring when the storm outside really picked up. Wind slammed against the windows and rain hammered the roof. The trees out back thrashed violently. I muted the TV and checked my phone. No messages, just wind and rain. Then, through the brief silence between rumbles of thunder, I heard something. A knock. Not the loud kind, more like a soft, deliberate tap, tap, barely audible over the rain. It came from the sliding glass door that led to our back patio. I waited, thinking maybe it was just a tree branch. Then I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. Cool. The hell would be at my back door during a storm? I crept toward the kitchen, heart thudding, and peeked around the corner. Through the rain-blurred glass, I saw nothing but darkness. Still, I flipped on the patio light. There was no one there. I stood, watching for a while before I convinced myself it was just the wind or some branch knocking against the frame. I turned the light off and walked back to the couch, trying to shrug it off. But then it happened again. This time louder. Tap, tap, tap. I jumped and spun around. The sliding door was dark, but I felt it like something was watching me. This time, I grabbed the flashlight from the drawer and marched straight to the door. I shone the beam out into the yard. Nothing, the woods were pitch black. The storm howled, but there was no sign of movement. I flicked off the flashlight and turned to leave. That's when I heard the tap tap tap, a gun only. Now it wasn't coming from the back door. It was coming from the window in the laundry room. That window sits high up, facing the woods, with a narrow ledge. There's no reason someone would or could be knocking there. My breath caught in my throat. I backed into the hallway and strained to listen. Another knock, slower, heavier, dot, thud, dot, thud, dot. I grabbed my phone and turned on the camera. I didn't want to get too close, but I needed to see what was out there. I crept into the laundry room and raised the phone toward the window, zooming in through the blinds. Nothing. Again, I lowered the phone. Then a face appeared, sick, right outside the window, pale. Wet eyes, wide open, just staring. I stumbled backward and nearly dropped the phone. The face disappeared before I could take a picture. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't hear leaves crunch, just silence. I closed the laundry room door and locked it. Now I was officially freaked out. I turned on every light in the house and made sure all doors and windows were locked. I even grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed. I texted my parents, but with the storm, the signal was crap. No bars. At this point, I was pacing, heart racing. I didn't want to look out any windows. I didn't want to sit still either. So I kept walking the house in circles, checking locks, lights, everything. Then the power went out. Complete darkness swallowed the house. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening. Thunder cracked overhead, followed by silence. And in that silence, I heard it again. The knock, this time, from the front door. I crept toward it, gripping the bat tightly. The porch light was dead, so I couldn't see anything through the peephole. My heart thudded against my ribs like a drum. I raised my phone to use the flashlight. Then something pressed gently against the other side of the door. Not knocking, just pressing. I backed away, and then came the scratching, slow like a fingernail sliding down the wood. That was it. I ran upstairs to my room, locked the door, and pushed my dresser in front of it. I sat in the dark, phone in one hand, bat steady in the other, straining to hear. More scratching, now at the upstairs bathroom window. I didn't move, then glass shattering. From downstairs I jolted up, heart jumping to my throat. Something was inside. I could hear slow, deliberate footsteps. They weren't rushed. They were careful, measured, heavy. Whatever it wasn't in a hurry. I dialed 911, no signal. I crawled to my closet and shut myself inside. Trembling, I could hear the thing moving around below, dragging something, maybe its feet, or something heavier than it started, climbing the stairs, step by step by step. I held my breath. It stopped at my bedroom door. There was a soft knock, then a voice, a man's voice, raspy, almost amused. "I know you're awake." I bit down on my lip, trying not to make a sound. "Don't bother hiding," the voice said. "I already saw you." Silence. Then a loud crash, my dresser being shoved aside. The doorknob jiggled, then turned, locked. He tried again. Harder then. I heard the unmistakable sound of metal scraping. Wood like a knife. "I'll get in eventually, guy." I texted my neighbor, hoping he'd see it. Hoping someone would. Then dash sirens. The man stopped. I heard running, heavy thuds down the stairs. The front door slammed. Police arrived minutes later. My neighbor had gotten the message and called them. They never found anyone. Just shattered glass and muddy footprints leading from the woods to the house, and then vanishing completely at the edge of the backyard. I haven't stayed home. alone since dot, and if you hear tapping at your window during a storm, don't look.
Third story.
It was my first weekend alone at the farmhouse. My parents had driven 2 states over to visit my grandmother in the hospital, and I'd insisted I was old enough to stay. I was 18, we had a dog, and honestly, I loved the silence out here. Number, traffic, no neighbors, just trees and open fields. That Saturday evening, I grilled some dinner on the porch, let the dog roam the backyard, and then curled up on the couch with my laptop. The living room window looked out over our huge backyard, mostly flat land, ending in a wall of dark pine trees. At around 10:40 p.m. I was halfway through an episode of Mindhunter when the motion floodlight behind the house clicked on. I looked up from my screen. Bright white light now flooded the backyard, casting long shadows from the old garden shed and fence posts. Probably just the dog, I thought, but then I heard a low growl. Rusty, our golden retriever, was standing stiffly by the sliding glass door, his hackles raised. That wasn't like him. He growled again. Stepping slowly backward from the glass, I stood up, cautiously peeking outside. I saw nothing at first, until I noticed something strange near the tree line. A figure, a man, standing completely still in the grass, just at the edge of the pines. He was facing the house. I couldn't make out any details. His face was shadowed, arms hanging at his sides, legs slightly apart. Not moving. Not even blinking. The floodlight clicked off. Pitch black. I waited. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. 30 seconds passed. Then the light clicked on again. He was closer, still not moving, still just staring. No flashlight, no phone, just standing. I reached for my phone with trembling hands and called my dad, straight to voicemail. Rusty was now barking, loud and sharp, pacing along the sliding door like he was trying to protect me. Then the light cut out again. This time, I moved. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, turned on every light in the house. I locked the front and back doors. Double-checked the windows. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Rusty had calmed down. I told myself it was probably just a hunter or a neighbor's guest who got lost. Creepy, sure, but maybe not dangerous. I went to brush my teeth. I was rinsing my mouth when the floodlight flicked on again. This time, from the bathroom window, I had a clear view of the side yard. He was standing directly under the light now. Same posture, same silent, motionless stare. My skin felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. Then the motion light turned off, total darkness. I backed away from the window, heart pounding, every instinct in my body screaming that I was being watched. Suddenly, a loud sound from the back porch. Rusty went ballistic. I crept toward the living room and peeked through the curtain. There was nothing on the porch, but something had been thrown at the door. A rock. When I looked down, I noticed a smear of mud and something else. Scratched words on the glass, just barely visible. Hello. I shut every curtain in the house. The next hour was quiet. No light, no noise. I started to feel like I could breathe again. Maybe he was gone. I laid down on the couch. Rusty curled at my feet. I must have nodded off, because I woke to Rusty growling again. The floodlight outside had turned on one more time, and the man... He was now at the bottom of the back porch steps. He'd gotten across the yard, silently, without triggering the lights until he was just feet away. That's when he moved. He raised one hand, slowly, and started to wave. Not fast, not friendly. A slow, exaggerated, deliberate wave. Then he took one step onto the bottom stair. I didn't think. I ran to my room, locked the door, shoved my dresser in front of it. I called the cops. This time, it rang. I whispered everything, gave them the address, begged them to hurry. Then I grabbed the old hunting rifle from my dad's closet and sat on the floor, aiming it at the door. The floodlight went off again. Pitch black. 10 minutes passed. The police still hadn't arrived. Then a knock, not on the door, on the living room window. 3 soft taps. I held my breath, didn't move. Another tap. I slowly crept out of the bedroom, rifle in hand. From the hallway, I could see the man's face pressed against the glass, fogging it up as he breathed slowly. He began writing something in the condensation with his finger. Couldn't read it at first. Then it became clear. Why don't you come out? Before I could react, sirens. Red and blue lights washed across the room. The man didn't move, didn't flinch. The moment the cruiser pulled into the driveway, he simply turned and walked back into the trees. By the time officers searched the property, here was gone. No footprints, no note, no fingerprints on the glass, nothing. The police said I did the right thing. They promised to patrol the area, but they had no idea who he was. No reports, no suspects, no leads. It's been a year now. We replaced the floodlight with cameras, got new locks, but sometimes at night, Rusty still growls at the window. Next time you see someone standing in your yard, don't wait for them to knock.